Hello everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again here. We have our lovely guest here, Natasha Selvaraj, one of the most respected real estate attorneys here in our Gulf Coast area, along with being here from Berlin, Patten, Ebling, one of the most respected law firms on the Gulf Coast also. So thank you very much for being here with us to join us today. Today's topic, what we're going to talk about a little bit, is digging into short sales and foreclosures. So welcome, Natasha. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So as we kind of get into this, it's a topic that we don't love to get into, but it's sort of a necessary evil. What are some of the early signs that people get into and that can help, they'll see what's coming down the road? How can they start to prepare to position themselves the best for something coming like this down the road?
Sure. So short sales and foreclosures are typically situations in which a property owner hasn't been making their mortgage payments. And with a foreclosure, it could be that they just haven't made mortgage payments in a long time, and so their mortgage lender is looking essentially to recoup their property, their collateral, to get their loan paid back. A short sale is a situation where you might have someone going on that foreclosure path where, for whatever reason, their outstanding mortgage balance might be higher than the value of the property, or maybe very close to the value of the property, so they don't know that they're necessarily going to get that price, again, market dependent, and so they might be in a situation where they need to negotiate with their mortgage lender to say, hey, this is the best I can do, and we're going to sell the house, we're going to pay you the most that we can, but it's not going to be all of it, and kind of negotiate that. Typically the signs of that are either people who have mortgages that they can't afford to pay or haven't been able to pay for an extended period of time. I'm not talking about one missed mortgage payment, it's a series of missed mortgage payments, or a pattern of not being able to make those payments for whatever reason. And then along with that, the other consideration is, are they selling their property? Because with a short sale, you're selling the property because you're getting out from under it, and that also
Trying to get a little bit ahead of it.
Trying to get ahead of the foreclosure, because with the foreclosure, you're dealing with the bank essentially taking away your property, and you're potentially impacting your credit, your ability to purchase future properties. And nobody really wants to Google themselves and see in the public records that they're being foreclosed on, and go through that entire legal process, whether they hire an attorney and incur those additional expenses or not.
Yeah. So basically foreclosure, the difference in those, that foreclosure is going to be something that you're basically going to lose it. You fall behind, can't catch up. You haven't taken proactive steps perhaps, or if you can, there's just not a way to it. Short sale, you might be taking some steps. You're probably taking a loss on the property. Well, short sale, by definition, you're going to be taking a loss. And there might be some opportunity for you to negotiate that shortness on that as well. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, good. So if we go through all that to take a look at the two processes, some of the fallout from those two is, as you mentioned, I think one of the things to be considered is what's going to happen if you really ignore all the signs, because everybody that you owe money to in this situation is going to be contacting you. And one of the things that we like to say is, that you don't call the fire department after the house is burned down. You call the first sign of smoke. Exactly.
So your first signs of smoke are really going to be you're behind on payments. You're starting to receive those notices from the mortgage lender that says, hey, we're going to foreclose if you don't bring your balance current. And so
should you just ignore those and throw those away, or should you do something with
you
those
really
notices?
should do something about it. Other than putting the notices in the trash, I would recommend, working with your lender. That's really your first step, is being proactive and giving them a call, and depending on your situation and why you're in the position you're in, they might be able to work with you, whether it's working with you on a forbearance plan, finding a way to minimize additional expenses, because at that point, once you're in default by missing a payment, you're incurring interest at a higher rate potentially. You're potentially having all of these other penalties and late fees added, and then the interest on all of that accruing, which makes it harder and harder for you to get out from under it. So being proactive, making that phone call, asking them to work with you is really going to help you avoid being in a position where you're losing your home, impacting your credit, or anything like that.
From our experience on it, is the sooner you can get ahead of this, stay on top of it, you can have conversations with them, because they would rather work with you, because none of these financial institutions wants to take your home,
Yeah.
because it's more added burden for them rather than you just making the payments, even if it's delayed at some rate, or putting it into forbearance,
Mm-hmm.
paying off later, those kind of things. Very, very things that you have to be cognizant of.
Absolutely, and I think, like to your point, most lenders want to be able to find a way not to foreclose. So whether it's negotiating a short sale, whether it's finding a way to adjust that payment plan,
Yeah.
figuring out what they can do, that really makes a difference. And then you're always factoring in what if any equity is in the property and what that property could sell for, because in some situations it might be better to put it on the market and get out from under it if you have an unaffordable mortgage payment. Taxes and insurance have gone up more than you anticipated, things like that.
Yeah, and those are things, again, staying ahead of those. We run into clients on rare occasion that are they want to list their home. And one of the things that's a challenge for a realtor, we are not your legal advice, we've always said, defer to Natasha. But the best thing we can do is get all the information we can from our sellers. If they don't tell us about it, we may not necessarily know it. But we've got to also do some of our own due diligence on that. But we've got to have the truthfulness coming out of a seller, because we can't fix a problem if we don't know it's there.
Exactly.
Much like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but you will find it. You're going to dig in a lot deeper on it.
Our title search is going to tell us everything we need to know. It's going to tell us about outstanding liens, mortgages, whether you're behind on mortgage payments, HOA payments, things like that. So we're going to have that information. But again, just I think the theme of this conversation is the sooner you can get ahead of it, the easier it's going to be to solve it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be helpful to a seller to find out on the day of closing or the day before closing that they suddenly are short, or that there are all these penalties because they haven't been opening their letters from the HOA or from the lender to know that there's all of this stuff going on. So just being ahead of that is important, being honest with themselves and with whoever they're working with, whether it's their attorney or their realtor, to really say, hey, this is where we're at. We haven't paid this bill in 6 months, and so there's probably some fines and penalties, and being able to work backwards from that to figure out what is their bottom line, what can they sell for, do they need to be in a short sale situation, can they get out otherwise?
Yeah, and having all that information as a seller, you're in a distressed situation, and it's been our experience that the sooner you can get into that, figure out what your exit strategy is going to be. It still might be painful to a certain degree, but it can be a lot. You can lessen it significantly by starting off with a conversation and everybody being on the same page. Your institution, sure, you might incur some penalties, but you can keep your home and deal with it at a later time when your situation becomes more favorable. In foreclosure, perhaps a short sale. A short sale, same thing. You have a chance to get out with maybe a little bit of money as opposed to nothing, or being at the bottom of it.
Exactly. So it's just being proactive and making sure that you're paying attention to that and all those notices that you're getting, and to the extent that you can, working with your homeowners association if they're the one sending the notice, or your mortgage company, to make them aware of your situation and kind of see what they can do. So every time they have to send you another letter, every time they have to send another notice, you're incurring attorney's fees from their attorney who's going to bill them, and they're going to bill you. So that's just adding to the burden. So being able to say, hey, I need 30 days, 45 days, 6 months, whatever the thing might be, might help you also save on some of those costs, because they're not sending you increasingly aggressive mail in hopes that you'll respond.
Yeah, and in all situations, I mean, stuff in life happens. Sometimes the best laid plans go sideways that you didn't expect. But staying in front of those can be really the key to saving your home, saving your credit, being able to get into your next place, because these will all have detrimental effects if not dealt with. And there still may be some marks that go against a seller in these situations anyway. But again, the best remedy seems to be having the conversations as soon as possible with the parties that are relevant to the conversation. When you even deal with the short sales, what are some the better alternative between short sale and foreclosure? What's your recommendations on these?
I would say if there's a way to do a short sale, you're gonna wanna do that rather than go through the foreclosure process. The foreclosure process is a court proceeding, you're going to lose your home, it's going to impact your credit, it's going to potentially impact your ability to buy another property. With a short sale, you're essentially having your mortgage lender or whoever has that lien agree to take a lower amount of money to release you from that liability, and that's typically the better option.
Release you partially or fully.
Correct. Typically, we're negotiating for them to fully release you, so they're not. If you owe, for example, $100,000, and they say, you know what, we're going to release you fully for $80,000, that might be a better alternative than them trying to foreclose on you, and then you have that foreclosure lingering in the background. Again, depending on the situation, that might be the better option, and that might give you more peace of mind, give you the ability to move forward and, you know, find another home, find a different property. I know even with rentals, we run into that issue where you don't want a foreclosure in your history because that might impact your ability to be able to qualify to rent a place. It might impact your credit for those reasons as well.
Yeah, and again, that's stuff that we deal with on a somewhat regular basis in trying to find people places. When people look at rentals, one of the stipulations you see often in rentals is no bankruptcies, no foreclosures. So that, you know, if you can avoid those things, fantastic, because it'll just help you get to a softer landing spot when you get through those. And so once you've started either of these processes that you're going into, what do you find is kind of is there a general time frame that short sales take, foreclosures take?
So
they vary greatly?
They vary significantly. With foreclosures, you could see anywhere from, you know, a couple months to a year, depending, even longer, depending on where it's being filed, how quickly the docket is moving in that particular court system, and then again, the value of the property versus the outstanding mortgage, and maybe how delinquent you are and how quickly that specific lender is willing to push it through. With a short sale, you're really negotiating one-on-one with whatever their remediation risk mitigation department is. It typically takes several weeks. I've seen them negotiated within, you know, a couple of weeks, or I've had a couple that have taken several months, and it really, again, depends on what the value is versus what that outstanding loan is and how much of a gap we have to close. It's easy to say, you know what, will you take a 1 or 2% hit versus, hey, I can only give you 50%, and that's a harder pill for people to swallow. So just kind of balancing that out sometimes impacts what you can do, and, you know, obviously market conditions as well, making sure that if you're doing a short sale, that there is a buyer willing to buy, that you're selling at a price that someone is going to be willing to, you know, purchase for, that person is qualified, and that sale can happen timely too. Yeah,
and again, I think we've seen some of the situations. Luckily, we don't run into them all the time, but we've seen where sellers have come up and, you know, the house isn't in it may be great condition, and now they're in one of these scenarios, and now they want to sell and they want to get market value, but I'm like, you've got a lot of work to do in the house because you haven't maintained it because of a lot of these problems that may have come up. And you could start that conversation earlier to help you get out earlier in a better state for the home too, to help you get more value for it if you have to leave the home, in whatever condition it's going to be left in.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So in the legal and financial aspect of it too, what do you see as some of the biggest mistakes? So we know if ignoring it is probably numero uno, you don't want to do. So besides that, what do you kind of see as some of the biggest mistakes homeowners do when facing these situations?
Besides just completely ignoring the problem, I think it's just not realizing the significance of the issue. I think a lot of people wait because they think that there's going to be a change in their situation, there's going to be a change in the market, and things will just fall into place. And while there's always a chance, usually that delay in time is going to be a detrimental factor, because the longer you fall behind, the bigger that gap is and what needs to be recouped. But it's also, like you said, the property condition typically starts to deteriorate at that point. You're not going to be in a position to want to make repairs or be able to make additional repairs or do all of those pre-showing prep type things that we'd like to do to put our best foot forward on the property. And so you're kind of negatively impacting yourself there as well. So recognizing the signs early and acting on them is really
Yeah,
going to go a long way.
as your realtor, I mean, it's very tough to go into a place that's falling apart, decrepit on the inside. The grass hasn't been cut in a month. You know, as a real estate investor, we go out and we look for properties that might be distressed, so we can find those opportunities. However, you know, to save somebody, you know, our ultimate goal is to help people save their places, or buy places when they do this. So maintaining your property is, you know, it's going to be key to how much you can get for a property as we go through it. And you know, we've talked a little bit how this can severely negatively impact your credit and your future for buying, your future for renting. These are all big things I think that you've really got to keep in mind when taking a look at you know, what you're going down and how fast you can get to it before headed off.
You don't want one bad situation to set you up for failure in all future situations, and so getting ahead of it, and as painful as it might be in the moment to have to deal with that, can set you up for success in the future, and you don't want to lose out on that opportunity.
Yeah, and those things will stay on your credit for a significant amount of time. You know, again, it's not going to blow away. You know, just because you ignored the mail, it's not going away. So the things that you want to keep in there. You know, and you know the other side of it too is you know, how people get emotionally invested to something like this and some practical experience on them as they go through this. That ignoring it can become kind of an analysis paralysis. We can often say, you know, what do you think of as things that people can do to really kind of help themselves in those? You know, to keep a level head too.
I think making sure you're working with professionals is important. Making sure you have a trusted realtor or attorney that you can run through the options with, who can guide you through practically the practical outcome of every situation, because it's very easy to make the emotional decision, but having someone who could say, okay, pros and cons of option A, pros and cons of option B, so you can really look at them and then make the best decision for you, because ultimately it's going to be that property owner who knows what's going to be best for them short-term and long-term, but the best we can do is give you that option from a hopefully non-emotional position, so that way they can kind of evaluate and decide what's best.
Yeah, and that's where we always recommend having you know, true real estate professionals help you, assist you on this. The real estate attorneys like Natasha to come help guide you through that, because the best decisions all start with knowing your numbers. And if you know your numbers, then you have an opportunity to make an educated, informed decision about the best path for you to take going through that. So you know, I think that's really key. Is just knowing to do that. So, summing kind of this up for us, what's the most important thing you're going to put out there?
Most important thing is don't ignore your mail. Make sure that if you are getting something, any type of delinquency notice, foreclosure notice, any type of, hey, you missed a payment type document, that you're looking at it and assessing that situation. Is it something that was an oversight or an accident or a one-time thing and you can quickly move past it? If so, get it taken care of and then move on. If it's something that you anticipate being a continuing problem, seek out the resources that are available to help you, whether it's calling a trusted realtor or attorney to guide you to that, calling your lender directly, homeowners association, whoever it might be, to talk about those options and figure it out. Making sure you're proactive is really going to be the most important.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, thanks again, Natasha, for your time today. If you're in a position that you're feeling anxious or very concerned about what may happen there, reach out to us. Reach out to Natasha. We'll have her information included in here as well for you to reach out. You know, we trust Natasha and Berlin, Patten, Ebling here with our business as well. And it's just worthwhile to have those conversations sooner than later on there. So please do reach out. Let us know if we can ever be of help for that. And Natasha, again, thank you very much for your time. We always love your advice.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. Again, I'm Jeff Polster with the Polo team. We thank you for joining us here with Real Estate Unpacked. And remember, as always, it's your move. Make it count.